The world was ending in fire and noise. Sergeant Jin felt the deep thumps of the alien bombs through the soles of his boots. The air was hard to breathe, full of dust and the sharp smell of burning things. He crouched behind the broken body of a large troop carrier. Its green paint was blackened and peeled. This piece of metal was the only thing between him and the enemy. His rifle felt warm and heavy in his hands. He had been firing it for a long time. All around him was the ruined city of New Daegu. Tall buildings were now just broken teeth against a dirty orange sky. The enemy, the Kalari, were winning. Everyone knew it. Their machines walked through the city without a sound. They were hunters, and the people of Sora 3 were their prey. A small movement to his right made him turn his head. It was Corporal Mina Lee. She was younger than him and newer to his squad. While other soldiers had fear in their eyes, Mina had a calm, watchful look. She was looking at the rubble, her eyes moving slowly, taking everything in. She was quiet, but she was always there, always reliable. "Anything?" Jin asked, his voice rough from smoke and shouting. Mina shook her head without looking at him. "Nothing close. But they are coming. I can feel it," Jin believed her. Mina had a sense for these things. She often knew where the enemy would appear before they did. It had saved their squad more than once. Suddenly, a crackling voice came through the small speaker in his ear. It was Captain Day. The captain's voice was tired and firm. "All units. This is a full retreat. Fall back to the starport. The Odyssey is our last ship out. I repeat, this is our last ride. Do not delay. Fall back now." Jin's heart sank. A retreat meant they had lost. Sora 3 belonged to the Kailari now, but it also meant a chance to live. A chance to fight another day. He grabbed Mina's arm. "You heard him? The starport. Let's go." They moved together, leaving the safety of the broken carrier. They ran low and fast, jumping over piles of broken concrete and twisted metal. The sounds of distant fighting echoed between the dead buildings. Other figures in dirty green uniforms moved in the same direction, all running for one last hope. They turned a corner into a wide street that was less damaged. The starport was at the far end. Hope felt close. They just had to cross this open space. That was when the shadow fell over them. It was a cold, dark shadow that seemed to swallow the light. A shape dropped from the sky above, landing in front of them without a sound. The ground shook softly under its weight. It was a Kailari hunter. Jin's breath caught in his throat. He had seen them before, but never this close. It was taller and broader than a man. Its armor was a polished, oily black that reflected the fires around them. It had no face, just a smooth, dark helmet. In its hand it held a long blade. The blade was not made of metal, but of a red, humming energy that made the air sizzle. The hunter stood between them and the starport. It was a wall of death. Jin felt a cold fear in his stomach. He had fought these things before. He had seen what that red blade could do. He had lost friends to them. "Mina, run," he yelled, raising his rifle. "I'll hold it off. Get to the ship." He knew it was a foolish thing to say. He would last maybe 3 seconds against this thing. But it was his job. He was the sergeant. He would die so his soldier could live. The hunter's head turned towards him. A light glowed on its helmet and a voice came out. It was not a real voice. It was a cold electronic sound like a machine trying to talk. "Flee, little creature," it stated. The words were flat and had no feeling. "I've slain hundreds like you." The words were meant to create fear. They were meant to make him feel small and worthless. And they worked. Jin's hands felt cold. Hundreds. This machine had killed hundreds of humans. He was just one more. A number. He tightened his finger on the trigger. He would at least die fighting. But then something happened that he did not expect. Mina did not run. Instead, she took a step forward. Then another. She moved past Jin and placed herself directly in the path of the hunter. She did not raise her own weapon. She just stood there, her body tense and ready. Jin stared, confused.
"Mina, what are you doing?"
"Get back." She ignored him. Her eyes were locked on the dark helmet of the hunter. Her calm face was now sharp with focus. The hunter seemed to notice her for the first time. Its head tilted slightly as if it was curious. Then Mina spoke. Her voice was clear and steady. It cut through the sounds of the dying city. "Then you've been practicing for me." For a moment there was silence. The humming of the energy blade was the only sound. Jin could not believe what he was hearing. Was she mocking it? Was she crazy? The hunter responded to her challenge. It moved. It was unbelievably fast. One moment it was standing still. The next, the red blade was cutting through the air towards Mina's neck. It was a strike meant to kill in one blow. Jin shouted a warning, but it was too late. But Mina was not there. She did not jump back. She did not duck. She moved to the side in a smooth, gliding motion. The blade passed so close to her that it should have cut her, but it touched nothing but air. It was as if she had known exactly where it would be. The hunter stopped, its body perfectly balanced. It was surprised.
Jin could feel its surprise. It attacked again.
This time a horizontal sweep aimed at her waist. Mina dropped into a low crouch, the red light passing over her head. As she came up, her hand, stiff like a blade, shot out and struck the hunter's elbow joint. There was a sharp, cracking sound. A small spark of light flickered from the joint. The hunter pulled its arm back. It made a low, grinding noise. It was hurt. Jin watched, his rifle forgotten in his hands. He had never seen anyone move like that. It was not the trained, strong moves of a soldier. It was something else. It was like a dance. A deadly perfect dance. She was not stronger than the machine. She was smarter. She was faster in a different way. She saw the openings that Jin could not see. The hunter was no longer just a hunter. It had become the prey. It swung its blade wildly now, its perfect movements becoming rough and angry. Mina weaved between the attacks. She was always one step ahead. She moved like water flowing around the machine's strength. She saw an opening. As the hunter overextended a thrust, she stepped inside its reach. She was too close for the long blade. With one hand, she grabbed the arm holding the blade. With her other hand, she pulled the combat knife from her belt. It was a simple, plain knife of human steel. She drove the knife not at the thick chest armor, but up, into a thin seam where the helmet met the neck armor. There was a terrible sound of tearing metal and spitting wires. A bright light flashed from the wound she made. The hunter shuddered violently. Its grip on the energy blade failed and the red light vanished. The machine stood still for a second, and then it fell forward like a tree, hitting the ground with a heavy final thud. Silence returned to the street. Mina stood over the dead machine, breathing heavily. She pulled her knife out and wiped the dark, oily fluid on her pants. Jin slowly lowered his rifle. He walked towards her, his legs feeling weak. He looked from the dead hunter to Mina's face. She looked back at him, and for a second the focused look was gone. She just looked like a tired young woman again. What? Jin started, but his voice was a whisper. What are you? Mina did not answer his question. She looked towards the starport. The sounds of the retreat were still going on. There's no time, Sergeant, she said, her voice returning to its normal tone. We have to go. She turned and started running towards the starport, not looking back at the incredible thing she had just done. Jin stood for a moment longer, staring at the broken hunter. The machine that had killed hundreds. The machine that had said he was just a little creature. This young corporal had destroyed it with a simple knife. He knew then that the war had just changed. He did not know how or why, but he knew that Mina was the key. He quickly followed her, his mind full of fear and wonder and 1,000 questions. The silence in the street did not last. The low rumble of distant explosions and the frantic shouts of other retreating soldiers quickly filled the air again. Jin's legs felt stiff and heavy as he forced them to move, to follow the figure of Mina running ahead. His mind was a storm of confusion. The image of the Kalari hunter falling, of Mina's calm face as she stood over it, played over and over behind his eyes. He had seen combat for 3 long years. He had seen men and women die. He had seen bravery and he had seen cowardice, but he had never seen anything like that. It was not bravery. It was something else. It was like watching a master mechanic fix a broken engine, every movement sure and precise and without waste. But the engine had been a living, killing machine. They reached the main gate of the starport. It was chaos. Soldiers pushed and scrambled towards the open ramp of a large, blocky transport ship. This was the Odyssey. It was not a pretty ship, but it was their only chance. Its gray hull was scarred and burnt from many fights. Officers yelled orders, trying to form some kind of line, but it was a losing battle. Fear was in charge here. Jin and Mina joined the crowd, getting pushed along towards the ramp. Jin kept his eyes on Mina. She moved normally now, just another soldier trying to get on the ship. There was no sign of the incredible speed and skill she had shown just minutes before. They finally stumbled up the ramp and into the loud, crowded belly of the ship. The air inside was thick with sweat and the sharp smell of fear. The metal deck vibrated under their feet as the ship's engines roared to life. The large ramp began to close, slowly cutting off the view of the burning city. With a heavy final clang, it shut. They were sealed in. The Odyssey lifted off with a lurch, throwing people off balance. Jin grabbed a strap hanging from the ceiling to steady himself. Through a small, thick window, he watched the ground fall away. Flashes of light dotted the city below as the Kelari continued their destruction. Zora 3 was gone. The ship shook violently as it pushed through the atmosphere. For a few long minutes, they were thrown around. The noise of the engines and the air outside a deafening roar. Then suddenly it stopped. The shaking eased. The noise faded to a steady, deep hum. The blackness of space replaced the orange fire of the planet through the window. They had made it. A collective sigh seemed to go through the crowded bay. The immediate fear of death was over. Now there was only the tiredness and the grief. Jin found a quiet spot near the ship's engines, a little alcove that was slightly less crowded. He slid down the wall to sit on the cold metal floor. He closed his eyes, trying to slow his racing heart. A few minutes later, he felt someone sit down next to him. He opened his eyes. It was Mina. She had a small med kit in her hand. She was looking at the burn on his arm he had gotten from falling rubble earlier. He had forgotten all about it. "Let me see," she said, her voice soft. She cleaned the cut and put a clean bandage on it. Her hands were steady and capable. Jin watched her face. She looked tired but still calm. "Mina," he began, his voice low so only she could hear. "Back there." "What was that?" She did not look up from putting the medical supplies away. "It was what needed to be done, Sergeant." "Don't give me that," Jin said, a little sharper than he meant to. "I've seen what those hunters can do. They've wiped out whole squads of our best soldiers. You killed one with a knife. How?" Before she could answer, a shadow fell over them. It was Captain Day. His uniform was dirty and there was a deep cut on his forehead. His eyes, always serious, were now grave. He looked from Jin to Mina. "Lee." "Jin, come with me," he said. It was not a request. They stood and followed him through the crowded bay. Soldiers moved out of their way, saluting the captain weakly. Day led them to a small room at the back of the ship. It was a storage room filled with boxes of supplies. It was private. He closed the door and the noise from the bay became a distant mumble. The captain leaned against a stack of boxes and crossed his arms. He looked directly at Mina. "The hunter you engaged on the surface." "Report," Day said. Mina stood straight. "Sir, the enemy unit was neutralized. How?" Day pressed. Mina hesitated for the first time. She glanced at Jin, then back at the captain. "It's okay, Corporal," Day said, his voice losing some of its edge. "The time for secrets is over. He needs to know." "We all do." Jin looked between them. "Needs to know what?" "Captain, what is going on?" Day sighed. He looked very old in the dim light of the storage room. "Sergeant, what you saw down there was not a lucky break. It was not a fluke. It was the Ghost program." Jin stared blankly. "The what?" "A last desperate gamble," Day explained. "The Kelari hunters are machines. They learn. They adapt. For every soldier we lose, they get better at killing us. Our normal weapons, our normal tactics, they stop working. We needed something that could adapt faster than they could. Something that could learn and predict their movements perfectly." He nodded towards Mina. "Corporal Lee is our only successful prototype. A next-generation combat artificial intelligence, fully integrated with a volunteer's organic brain." The words hung in the air. Jin felt like the room was spinning. An AI inside her head? He looked at Mina, at her human face, her tired eyes. You turned a soldier into a machine?" he asked, his voice full of horror. "They turned me into a weapon to save us," Mina corrected him quietly. Her gaze was steady. "The AI processes data. It sees patterns. It calculates the most efficient countermove. My human body and mind carry it out. Together we can fight them. But you're a person," Jin said, struggling to understand. "I am," Mina said, "and I chose this. The Kelari don't feel. They don't get tired. They don't fear. They are pure logic. To beat them, we had to create our own logic, a better one." Suddenly, the ship shuddered. It was not the gentle shake of normal flight. It was a hard, violent jolt like something big had hit them. A loud, blaring alarm started to scream through the ship. Red lights flashed in the storage room. Day's face went pale. He tapped the communicator on his wrist. "Bridge, report!" A frantic voice came through. "Captain, a Kalari boarding craft!" It latched onto our hull during the ascent. "They're cutting through the outer hatch in Bay 2. Day's eyes met Mina's. There was no fear in his look, only a cold understanding. "They're here for her," he said to Jin. "They know what she is. They saw what she did on the planet. They want to study her, or destroy her." Another heavy thud echoed through the ship, closer this time. The sound of tearing metal screeched from the hallway. "They're in," Jin said, grabbing his rifle from his back. The three of them burst out of the storage room and into the main bay. Chaos had returned. Soldiers were shouting, pointing their weapons towards the far end of the large room. A section of the wall was glowing red-hot. Then, with a final scream of metal, a large circle was cut away and fell inward with a crash. Through the hole, the blackness of space was visible for a second before a figure stepped through. It was another Kalari hunter, but this one was different. Its black armor was marked with glowing red lines and symbols. It was slightly taller, and it moved with an even more deadly grace. This was a leader, a commander. It stood in the hole it had made, its dark helmet scanning the room. It ignored the dozens of rifles pointed at it. Its gaze swept over the terrified soldiers and then stopped. It locked onto Mina. A synthesized voice, deeper and colder than the last one, echoed in the bay. "The anomaly. You will be studied." It raised its energy blade. The red light lit up the frightened faces of the soldiers. Jin raised his rifle, but Mina put a hand on his arm. "Stay back," she said. Her voice was different. It was flat, focused. The calm was gone, replaced by an intense machine-like concentration. Her eyes seemed to look at everything and nothing at once. She stepped forward to meet the hunter. The fight for their lives was not over. It had just come aboard. The air in the transport bay grew cold. The red light from the hunter's blade painted everyone's faces a bloody color. All the soldiers stood frozen, their weapons ready, but their hearts filled with fear. They had all heard stories about these hunters. They had seen what they could do, but Mina was not frozen. She walked forward, her steps quiet and sure on the metal floor. She did not look at the other soldiers. Her whole world had become the hunter in the broken wall. The hunter watched her come. It did not move. It was like a statue, a deadly piece of art. Its helmet tilted, studying her. "You are a flaw in the pattern," the machine stated. "You will be corrected." It moved. It was faster than the one on the planet. Much faster. It crossed the space between them in a blur. The red blade came down in a simple, perfect cut aimed at her head. Mina was already moving. She did not try to block it. She slid to the side, the energy blade missing her by a finger's width. The heat from it made her hair move. As the blade passed, she struck out with the side of her hand, hitting the hunter's wrist. The blow was sharp and precise. A small spark flew from the joint. The hunter pulled its arm back without a sound. It attacked again. And again. A series of strikes, each one faster than the last. High-low, a thrust, a sweep. The red blade was a constant humming light in the bay. Mina moved between the attacks. She was like water flowing around rocks. She ducked, weaved, and stepped. She was always a fraction of a second ahead. It was a terrible and beautiful dance. The soldiers watched with their mouths open. They could not believe what they were seeing. A human was fighting a hunter, and she was not losing. Jin watched, his rifle held tight. He saw the difference from the first fight. This hunter was better. It was learning from Mina's moves even as it fought. Its attacks were becoming more complex, trying to trap her, to limit her options. Mina was also changing. Her movements became less human, more efficient. It was like watching a very fast, very dangerous computer game. She found an opening. The hunter overreached on a thrust. Mina grabbed its arm, using its own force to spin the machine around. She delivered a powerful kick to the back of its knee. The joint buckled and the hunter dropped to one knee on the deck. For a moment, it was off balance. Mina did not hesitate. She pulled out her combat knife. She lunged forward, aiming for the same weak spot in the neck armor that had worked before. But this hunter was ready. Its free hand shot up and caught her wrist. The machine's grip was like iron. It stopped the knife just centimeters from its neck. The hunter's head turned slowly to look at her hand, at the knife. "Adaptation noted," it buzzed. "Tactic is now obsolete." With a terrible strength, it began to twist her arm. Mina gritted her teeth, her face showing pain for the first time. She was strong, but the machine was stronger. Jin saw what was happening. He raised his rifle. "Now fire!" he yelled. The spell was broken. The other soldiers opened fire. Bright bolts of energy flashed across the bay, hitting the hunter's back and shoulders. The shots did not pierce the thick armor, but the impact was like a hailstorm on metal. It was enough. The hunter was shaken by the barrage of fire. Its grip on Mina's wrist loosened for a split second. That was all she needed. She twisted her hand free, and instead of pulling back, she drove her knee hard into the hunter's side. There was a loud crack. She followed with a sharp, open-handed strike to the side of its helmet. The hunter reeled back, stumbling to its feet. The red symbols on its armor flickered. It was hurt. It looked from Mina to the soldiers who were still firing. It seemed to calculate its chances. The mission was to capture the anomaly, but the situation had changed. It decided to retreat. With a sudden, powerful leap, it jumped back through the hole it had cut in the hull. For a moment, it stood in the opening, the blackness of space behind it. Its dark helmet was pointed at Mina. "The data is collected," it said. "We will meet again, anomaly." Then it was gone, leaping back into the void towards its own ship. The bay was silent again. The only sound was the heavy breathing of the soldiers and the faint hiss of air escaping through the broken hull. An emergency door began to slide shut, sealing the hole with a thick metal plate. Mina stood panting in the middle of the floor. She slowly put her knife away. Her hand was shaking. On her shoulder, where the hunter's energy blade had grazed her during the fight, her uniform was burnt away. A nasty red burn mark showed on her skin. Jin ran to her.
"Mina, are you okay?"
She nodded, but her face was pale. "I am functional." Captain Day walked up, his expression grim. "It learned," he said. "It knew about the neck attack. The next one will know even more." He looked at the burn on her shoulder. "You need to go to the med bay now." Mina did not argue. She let Jin lead her away from the staring eyes of the other soldiers. They walked through the crowded bay. People moved aside for them now, but their looks were different. They were not looks for a fellow soldier. They were looks of awe and of fear. They had seen what she was, and it scared them almost as much as the hunters did. In the med bay, a doctor cleaned and treated the burn on her shoulder. It was deep and would leave a scar. Jin waited nearby, leaning against the wall. He watched her. She sat on the medical bed, her head bowed. She looked small and tired. Not like a weapon, not like a machine. She looked like a young woman who was carrying a very heavy weight. When the doctor was done and moved away to another patient, Jin came and sat next to her. "That was too close," he said quietly. Mina did not look at him. It adapted faster than I predicted. My response was not optimal. Her voice was still flat, like she was reporting on a broken piece of equipment. "Your response was incredible," Jin said. "You saved everyone on this ship." "For now," she replied. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were full of a strange sadness. "That is the problem, Sergeant. They learn. Every time I fight one, they get my data. They share it with all the others. The next hunter I face will know everything I did in these 2 fights. It will be ready. I have to be better, faster, smarter every single time. I cannot make a single mistake." Jin was silent for a moment. He understood the weight she was talking about now. The fate of every person on the ship, maybe of all the remaining humans, was resting on her shoulders. "And the enemy was getting smarter with every battle, so what do we do?" he asked. "I do not know," Mina whispered, her machine-like calm finally breaking. "I am the ghost. I am supposed to be the answer. But right now I feel like I am just giving them the questions for their next test." She lay back on the bed and closed her eyes. The fight was over, but a much bigger battle was just beginning. And Jin knew, looking at her, that she could not fight it alone. The steady hum of the Odyssey's engines was the only sound in the small medical bay. Mina lay on the bed, her eyes closed. The doctor had given her something for the pain, and she was now sleeping. Jin sat in a chair next to her, not sleeping. He watched the slow rise and fall of her breathing. He could not stop thinking about her words. "I feel like I am just giving them the questions for their next test." She was not a machine. He could see that now more than ever. A machine would not feel the weight of its own existence. A machine would not be afraid of making a mistake. She was a person, a young woman with something incredible and terrible living inside her mind. After a while, the door slid open and Captain Day walked in. He looked tired. He nodded at Jin and then looked at the sleeping Mina. "How is she?" Day asked, his voice low. The burn is bad, but the doctor says it will heal, Jin replied. She's sleeping. Good. She needs the rest. The captain pulled up another chair and sat down heavily. He rubbed his face with his hands. The Kalari ship is gone. It jumped away after the hunter returned. They got what they wanted. Data, Jin said. Data. Day agreed. He looked at Jin. You understand now, don't you? What she is, what she carries. I think I'm starting to, Jin said. But I still don't understand why. Why her? Day was quiet for a moment, choosing his words. The Ghost program had many volunteers. Strong soldiers, smart pilots. But the connection between the human brain and the AI? It was too much. It broke them. Their minds could not handle the flood of information. Mina was the only one. Her mind was quiet, calm. It could make room for the AI without being consumed by it. She is the balance. As if she heard them talking, Mina stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. For a second she looked confused, then her gaze cleared. She saw the captain and tried to sit up. At ease, Corporal, Day said gently. Just rest. But Mina was already pushing herself up. She winced as the movement pulled at her burnt shoulder. I am okay, sir. We need to talk about what happened. We do, Day said. The hunter adapted. It knew your moves. Mina nodded, her face serious. It is a problem. A big problem. The AI in my head is perfect. It can find the most efficient way to win a fight. It can see 1,000 possibilities in a second, but it has a flaw. Jin leaned forward. A flaw? I thought it was supposed to be perfect. It is, Mina said, and that is the problem. She looked from Jin to the captain. The flaw is me. The human part. She took a deep breath, trying to explain. When the AI calculates a move, it finds the perfect one. The fastest kill. The most logical strike. But my human mind, it hesitates. For a fraction of a second I see the enemy not as a target, but as a thing, a being. Sometimes I remember that it might have a pilot inside. Or I see a move that would kill it, but would also put a fellow soldier in danger. In that moment I question the AI's perfect solution. I feel empathy. She looked down at her hands. That hesitation, that moment of doubt, is a variable the AI cannot process. It is illogical. It is not perfect. And in a fight against a machine that is pure logic, that tiny moment of humanity is a weakness. The hunters will learn to look for it. They will learn to create situations that force me to hesitate. And then they will strike. The room was silent. Jin understood now. The Kalari were cold, perfect machines. Mina was a blend of perfect machine and imperfect human heart. The very thing that made her human was her greatest weakness in this fight. So what can we do? Captain Day asked. Can we remove the hesitation? Make the AI fully in control? Mina shook her head. If the AI was fully in control, I would not be me anymore. I would be a machine, just like them. And besides, without the human intuition, the AI can become too predictable. It was the human part of me that found a new way to strike the second hunter when the first move failed. The human mind can be creative in ways a machine cannot. Jin looked at her. She was trapped between two worlds. She had to be a machine to win, but if she became a full machine, she would lose the very thing that might give her an edge. Then we don't see it as a weakness, Jin said suddenly. They both looked at him. What? Day asked, the hesitation, the empathy. We don't see it as a flaw, Jin repeated. We see it as a different kind of strength. The Kalari are logical. They can predict a perfect machine, but they can't predict a person who cares. They can't predict someone who will make an illogical choice to save a friend. Mina was listening closely, a small light of hope in her eyes. So we don't try to remove the human part, Jin continued, thinking out loud. We use it. We make it part of the plan. The Kalari are looking for a perfect weapon to study and defeat, so we don't give them one. We give them something messy and human and unpredictable. Captain Day thought about this. A slow smile spread across his tired face. He's right. We've been thinking about this all wrong. We've been trying to build a better hunter. But we don't need a better hunter. We need something the hunters cannot understand. He stood up, his energy returning. We have a new mission. We are not just running anymore. We are going to find a Kalari command ship. We are going to take the fight to them. And we are going to show them that humanity's greatest weapon isn't perfection. He looked at Mina. It's heart. For the first time since the fight, Mina smiled. It was a small, tired smile, but it was real. The weight on her shoulders seemed to lighten just a little. She had a path forward. It was dangerous and it might not work, but it was a path. She was not just a weapon. She was a soldier. And she was not alone. The plan was simple and very dangerous. The Resistance had located a Kalari command ship, a vessel that directed the attacks on dozens of human worlds. Its name was the Silent Blade. Captain Day's idea was not to destroy it with bombs. It was to plant a sickness in its mind. A computer virus that would scramble its orders and blind its fleet if only for a little while. It was a small chance, but it was all they had. Jin and Mina would go in alone. A small team had a better chance of sneaking aboard. They flew a tiny, quiet shuttle away from the Odyssey and towards the massive, dark shape of the Kalari ship. The Silent Blade looked like a black crystal growing in the void of space. It was beautiful and terrifying. Their shuttle attached itself to the enemy ship's hull like a silent bug. Mina used a laser cutter to make a small, neat hole in the outer layer. They climbed inside into a dark, cold corridor. The air smelled of metal and something else, something sharp and strange. The inside of the ship was quiet. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft red light. They moved quickly and quietly. Mina led the way. Her eyes were focused, her movements sure. She was using her AI to map the ship and find the way to the main computer core. Jin followed close behind, his rifle ready, watching their backs. They did not meet any resistance. It was too easy. Jin felt a knot of worry in his stomach. "Where is everyone?" he whispered. "They know we are here," Mina replied softly. "They are waiting." They reached a large circular door. It was the entrance to the command core. Mina placed a small device on the door's control panel. It hissed and the door slid open. The room inside was huge and dark. In the center was a large, glowing pillar of light and swirling data. This was the heart of the ship, and standing between them and the pillar was the Hunter Commander. The same one from the Odyssey. Its armor, marked with red symbols, seemed to absorb the light. Its energy blade was already lit, casting a red glow on the floor. It did not move. It simply stood, waiting for them. "Anomaly," its synthesized voice echoed in the vast room. "Your pattern is known. Your emotional flaw is quantified. You cannot win." Mina stepped forward, her body tense. Jin moved to the side, trying to find a good position. The hunter attacked. It was even faster than before. Its movements were a blur. It had studied her, learned every move from their last two fights. It knew how she would dodge, how she would counter. It pressed her, its red blade always a centimeter from hitting her. Mina moved with her incredible speed, but Jin could see she was struggling. The hunter was predicting her. It was forcing her into a corner. Then the hunter created an opening. It feigned a high attack, and as Mina moved to counter, it suddenly changed direction. Its blade swept low towards her legs. At the same time, it used its free hand to shove a large piece of machinery towards Jin, pinning him against the wall. Mina jumped over the low sweep, but she landed badly, off balance. The hunter was on her in an instant. It raised its blade for a final killing strike. To make the strike, it had to turn its back slightly on Jin. Jin was trapped. He could not get free in time to shoot. He saw the blade start to come down towards Mina. He saw the perfect, logical move the hunter was making. It had calculated everything. It had won, but Jin was not logical. He did not try to shoot the hunter. The armor was too thick. Instead, he raised his rifle and fired at the power conduit on the ceiling directly above the hunter. It was a stupid, reckless move. The explosion could kill them all. The blast was loud and bright. Pieces of hot metal and sparks rained down. The conduit exploded, and a shower of electrical energy arced down, striking the hunter in the back. The machine shuddered violently. Its systems were disrupted for a critical second. The killing strike stopped mid-air. The hunter's head turned towards Jin. The red light in its helmet flickered. "Illogical," it buzzed, its voice full of static. That action had a high probability of terminal failure for your unit. It had calculated every possible combat move Mina could make, but it had not calculated a selfless, stupid human act from a normal soldier. It had not calculated that someone would risk everything to create a distraction. Not to win, but to give a friend a chance. That single, unpredictable variable was the opening Mina needed. Her systems, no longer conflicted by the immediate need to make a perfect choice, recalibrated. The human part of her saw Jin's sacrifice. The machine part saw the opportunity. She did not go for a kill shot. She moved past the stunned hunter, ignoring it completely. She ran to the central data pillar and slammed the data spike into it. The virus began to upload. The hunter commander tried to stop her, but its movements were jerky and slow from the electrical shock. It stumbled forward, its blade falling from its hand. It collapsed to its knees before the glowing pillar. The lights in the room flickered. The data streams in the pillar turned from red to a chaotic rainbow of colors. The virus was working. The hunter looked up at Mina. The light in its helmet was growing dim. Illogical, it repeated, its voice now just a whisper. Your victory is statistically impossible. Mina stood over it not as a perfect weapon but as a complete being. She was both human and machine. She had used both sides of herself to win. You were looking for a flaw in a weapon, she stated calmly. You found a strength in a person. Alarms began to blare throughout the Kalari ship. The silent blade was dying. Jin finally pushed the machinery off himself and ran to Mina. We have to go now. They ran back the way they came, leaving the broken hunter and the failing ship behind. They reached their shuttle and detached, flying quickly away. Behind them, the great silent blade went dark, its systems dead. Back on the Odyssey, there was no cheering. The victory was small. The war was not over. But it was a start. Jin found Mina looking out a window at the stars. She turned and looked at him. The constant focus in her eyes was gone. She just looked like Mina. Thank you, Sergeant, she said. You were right. The empathy was not a flaw. It was the key, Jin smiled. We did it together. The machine and the man, she nodded. The machine and the man. They had proven that the Kalari could be beaten, not by being more perfect, but by being more human. And as the Odyssey flew on into the dark, that knowledge was a light that no enemy could ever extinguish.